None of these things move me. And my subtitle is Encourage Yourself.
Amen.
Encourage yourself. Coming from 1 Samuel 30. 1 Samuel 30. 1 Samuel 30. When you get there, say amen. Ain't nobody there yet.
We ain't on live.
Thank you.
Okay, but this story is I like I like in the Old Testament David. He has all these great little stories going on, great things that happen in his life, and Joseph. Those are my two kind of favorite people in the Old Testament. You can laugh at them a lot, and then you say, "Ooh, Lord, was that me?" So, that's one of my stories. So, chapter 30 starts out with David and his 600 men. They're coming from on the run. David at this time had been on the run, and he has tried to alter God's plan. Now, God had already had David anointed to be king, but Saul was still living. So it was David, even though he had already been anointed to be king, and he was trying to, do what God wanted him to do, his own plan, his own way. And that's how we sometimes do. God has called us to do this, blah, and we're trying to go about it in a roundabout way. So David at this time had left from Israel because Saul was trying to kill him because he was still king. Yeah. And so David was kind of on the run. Yeah. And his thing was that he didn't want to kill Saul, and Saul had a couple times he could have killed David, but because the people really loved David, Saul was kind of still at that little standstill of, if I do it right now, too many people watching, blah, blah. But anyway, so David had actually gone to stay with, so quote unquote, the people against the enemies of Israel. And so his plan in David's mind was that I'm going to let the enemy think that I'm working for them, but his plan was I am going to, attack them, when I can, and say that, and saying that he was, part of working for the enemy, but he was in actuality working for the Israelites. So David had hooked up with King Achish, and he was getting ready to go fight the Israelites, and the Philistines were going to join up with King Achish. Now David was ace coon with King Achish, and so he really thought David was like, hey, yeah, these Israelites, they ain't no good, I'm gonna just try to do everything to kill them. But the commanders of the Philistines, they was like, I don't care, King, that you trust David like that. Well, we don't trust David like that. And so, the king had King Achish had recruited David. Come on, David, come, go with me to help the Philistines fight the Israelites. And David's like, oh yeah, come on, me and my boys, we're going to help. But, like I said, the Philistine commander said, no, you can't go. So in all of that, to get to chapter 30, King Achish told David, I appreciate your loyalty to me, but you need to go on back home. Back to Ziklag is where he was staying. So he was staying outside of the city where the Philistines stay. So he was staying outside of the city. So he was like, okay, you and your boys, you all go on back to Ziklag, and we're gonna go ahead and take care of this business because the Philistines didn't trust David. So we start in verse 1 on 1 Samuel 30. Now it happened when David and his men came to Ziklag on the third day that the Amalekites had invaded the south and Ziklag, attacked Ziklag and burned it with fire, and had taken captive the women and those who were there, from small to great. They did not kill anyone, but carried them away and went their way. So David and his men came to the city, and there it was, burned with fire, and their wives, their sons, and their daughters had been taken captive. So, just imagine that you're out, quote unquote, doing the work of the Lord, ministering. You go to sea for sea, you come home, and your house burned down.
Jesus.
All your stuff gone. You out on the mission field, and you come back to your place, and all your peeps gone. You don't know where they at. This is David. All he got is what he had brought with him from when he, was going out supposedly, working for the Lord doing this attack. So you come back and you see all this, and that's just the same with us. We go and we're like, oh Lord, I was doing this, now this happened. I don't believe it. And this is where David was. He was like, what? I'm working, doing this great work for Israel, trying to save them, protect them, because he had, killed some of the enemies, but he had told, King Achish that he didn't kill them. And we attacked such and such this other place. But in actuality, he was like trying to kill off, Israelites' enemies. And so just imagine you're out doing the work of the Lord, and you come back, and all your worldly possessions, all the things that you love is gone. And this is where David and his men come back, and they're like, what? What's going on? So how do you handle that? And even, it doesn't necessarily, like, for me, and this is, don't seem like a broken record, but like last year, one thing after the other, and I was like, okay, now, Lord, what is going on?
Right.
Now, it seems like the more you do, it seems like you get punched in the face a little bit harder and a little bit harder on the next blow, and you're like, I got these gloves on fighting for the Lord. Why am I getting beat up? Why I'm on the losing end? So that's what it appeared here. And in verse 4 it says, then David and the people who were with him lifted up their voices and wept until they had no more power to weep. So they did what we do in the natural. Oh, God, cry out, and this said until they had no more tears. So they was like, this is it. I'm at, despair. I'm at the end. I ain't got no hope. It's all gone. I don't know what to do. And then verse 5 and 2, and they, skip down to verse 6. Now David was greatly distressed, for the people spoke of stoning him, because the soul of all the people was grieved or bitter, every man for his sons and daughters. So here you go. You're the leader. Say, pastor's done all this stuff, blah, blah, blah. And we all come back from, where are we going in March? To Florida. And all our stuff burned down. Vehicles gone. And we don't know what's going on. We're going to come back and, because, Pastor, it's because you had us out there in Florida. Our stuff missing. It's gone. It's cold. We done got jacked over here. Here we go. So what do we want to do? We want to lash out. And that's what hurt people. Yeah. People who are hurt other people. That's part of their, that's part of what we do. And, even though we don't mean it, or sometimes we don't intentionally do it, but that's what ends up happening. And misery loves company. So it's like, hey, I'm hurting. I want somebody else to hurt. Or then you want to put the blame somewhere else. Well, it's because of you. You just never know that it could not be. And my thing for me now is, oh, Lord, Deuteronomy 8. What is that one? Deuteronomy 8. Deuteronomy 8:2. And you should remember all the ways of the Lord your God, who led you these 40 years into the wilderness, to humble you, to test you, prove you, to know what was in your heart, whether you would keep his commandment or not. So some things you're like, oh, all this happened, you want to blame somebody else, and God said, no, I let that happen. Jesus. And then when you go, so we don't want to say we're mad at God, but then sometimes we do. We get so crazy that look, I don't believe you, Lord. What kind of God are you? Why should I serve you? If you're going to allow this to happen. And David very well could have been thinking the same thing. I'm out here doing this, Lord, trying to protect the Israelites, which God didn't tell him to do, because God called him to be king, but he didn't tell him to go out there and be fighting nobody at that point. But hey, he was in his own little thing, and he was like, okay, Lord, I'm done. I've done all this, but here, look what you allowed to happen to me. And so we just want to, and then the people wanted to stone him. And then the people that I'm helping, the very ones that I'm helping, they want to throw stones to me. So what, Lord? So, and you're thinking, and David had the right to think, well, what in the world is going on here? And, and that's what, sometimes we end up doing that. So it says that David, I just want to say, but greatly distressed. David was in, and this, the crazy thing is, in all of this, these people were lashing out at David, but guess what? David was in the same situation. They didn't even look to say, well, David, your kids are gone too. Your house is burned too.
Thank you.
They were like, my stuff is gone.
Thank you.
I don't care. You're the reason my stuff missing.
Thank you. You better preach.
So they weren't looking at the whole picture like, not, just the 600. It was the 601 men. All their families were gone and the houses were burned down. And they weren't thinking about it. David was feeling bad about it. It's you. It's because of you. If you hadn't had us out here, You hadn't had us in Florida. We still could have had our house. Still could have had